Modern Craftsman Monday here.
Boom.
We had Anthony from Probuilt on the podcast in IBS. Audio was a little tough.
We scrapped it.
We did.
First time we've scrapped the pod.
It is the first time, but there was a lot of we were rushed out of that booth because.
Big thanks to Marvin.
Yeah, big thanks to Marvin for letting us use the booth. I failed to realize, or I'm going to blame myself.
All of us. No, it was all of us.
We failed to realize that there was a time constraint. And while the conversation was just getting good, we were kicked out of there. So we scrapped it, and we had Anthony back on this week. And we take a little different approach and talk about company culture. But in the beginning...
And the question of, is craftsmanship really dying?
Fair. So what do you guys think? Stay tuned and listen.
I feel like I'm more than a carpenter.
So you're saying it goes carpenter, contractor, GC, not in a hierarchy, but
not even, yeah, not necessarily a hierarchy. I feel like a carpenter generally almost works for someone. And then a contractor,
or like independently.
Yeah, I feel like a contractor. Almost, you could be any sort of trade contractor. And then I feel like a GC, like technically I could be a GC, but I feel like GC is more so probably subcontract more than I do. But I mean, technically, I guess I would be a GC because I do all sorts of that work.
I guess it came up because a Facebook friend from high school, hit me up and was like, "Are you a contractor?" And I sat there and read that post. I think this goes on forever. And I was like, out of all the marketing I have, you wonder if I'm a contractor?
Dude.
Yeah.
Like I was like, I responded going, can you hear me?
Yeah.
I can't hear me at all. Yeah, I'm back.
Yeah, I don't know why they cut out on those attachments.
And I was like, gosh, I'm like, yeah, we're a full GC firm. And she's like, I thought so because it says builder. I'm like, then why ask it? And it made me think of like I think a contractor I feel like a contractor you're doing more hands-on, self-performing.
Yeah.
Right? And that's kind of everything. A GC, I feel like you pull back a little bit on self-performing and I
think so too.
And you're going to hire more subs. Meaning contractor's going to be doing more of the overall carpentry.
Well, contractor's like hey, you're a contractor. All right, what kind of contractor? I'm a plumber. I'm an electrician.
Yeah. I feel like a contractor would get subcontracted more than subcontract people underneath of them.
And what do you think you are? Not what you want to be, what you are.
I know. I don't know. I if someone asks, I say I'm a builder remodeler.
So you don't even say GC. Why?
I do say GC. I don't know. I don't give a simple answer.
But there's nothing general.
First off, because I never can just answer a question.
If I had to come up, I feel like I would classify myself as a remodeling contractor.
Okay.
If there was only one category or like one adjective or kind of group to put myself into, I think that'd be the closest thing.
I usually say, yeah, we're a general contractor, but we also self-perform all our own carpentry and own a cabinet shop.
I feel like as a GC, that could be hand in hand. Like Craddock, I don't think of him like he's only a manager. I feel like it's
right,
almost
because
assumed.
You know him. But if he said, "Oh, I'm a GC," the question would be, do you manage? Do you just manage, or do you self-perform?
I usually think that the question comes up that it's like, how much do you self-perform? Because I think it's assumed.
What are you?
I'm a builder. Meaning that I probably just walk around all day. Like it's not the old school
builder. So what's the
builder.
difference between builder and general contractor?
I want to say a general contractor, the wide gamut of it, not just what we're looking at, they self-perform a lot more stuff.
Interesting. Okay.
And I think builders...
Well, look at Suffolk. They're a general contractor. They don't self-perform anything.
They have their own carpentry in-house.
I don't know why I always feel as though builders build houses.
Yeah.
I think when I think of builder, if somebody says they're a builder, what comes to my mind generally is new home construction, which could be completely inaccurate and wrong.
Well, that's what and where my name is NS Builders, and we've only done one new construction, and it was set up that way, and because that's what we were striving to be as builders.
Yeah.
So that's why it's like, we're a builder remodeler with a cabinet shop. So I don't know. I don't think it's that simple.
I know. I've never had a straight. I don't know the answer to all this.
Yeah.
Anthony, what are you?
What am I? I used to be a carpenter. I don't know what I am. I'm in this like midlife, mid-business crisis where I think I'm still a carpenter, but I'm really not sure.
But what about Probuilt? Like if someone said, "Hey,
Yes.
what is Probuilt?" You're
we're a high-end finish carpentry contractor.
Yeah.
So there it is.
That's what I would say too.
Yeah. I almost feel that contractor is a specialized, almost a service, if you will.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe painting contractor, plumbing contractor, HVAC contractor, carpentry contractor,
Wallpaper, all that.
And I think then I view the general contractor as kind of that one that's overseeing bringing on those specialty trades. I don't know. I don't have the answer either.
It's something I've always thought about because I think people really wonder where, like as an owner, what the growth is, if there's a growth path. Like you want to be a builder. Like there's nothing wrong with it. Like I say it all the time. People say, "Oh, do you just build houses?" I go, "No, we do, full remodels."
Yeah.
But I don't really bring the category into play of what we do. I really kick it to the style.
I mean, this goes back to what I'm super frustrated with is the way, what we're striving to be or what we're trying to become is, the way we're marketing ourselves. Yeah. And I had the conversation before. I started as a carpenter, and then became a carpentry company, and then became a remodeling company, and then became a remodeling company that started building.
This all happened in a matter of days.
Yeah, but
I woke up one morning,
that's if I think about who we were targeting 5 years ago,
not the same people,
and it's constantly changing. But adding the level of difficulty of classifying what we are, because it's like when you fill out going to IBS or an event, it says, "What are you?"
The best part is filling out how many millions do you do.
Huh?
The best part about filling out that sheet chart is how many millions do you do.
Well, it's always such a wide range.
I know, but I'm always like, where do I fall? I'm not in the bottom anymore.
Right.
Like I'm kind of in the middle.
And it's like, and what does this help? I mean, it just helps for, I guess, their analytics, but
people probably lie. 100 million.
Isn't that part of kind of the growth and evolution too of a business? Like I feel like definitely we started as what I would consider a finished carpentry company, and have kind of evolved into this custom millwork. We're not just a trim company because we're kind of a trim, architectural, millwork, manufacturer. I feel like it's as we grow and evolve, we add those different pieces to the puzzle.
I guess my question is, I get a lot of DMs from people. That's not a humble brag. It's just people always say, "Hey, I want to go off on my own," and I just feel like there is a better path that can be taken. Meaning, going from the carpenter, maybe laborer to carpenter, to working under a GC, to then becoming your own contractor, then becoming your own GC. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Where people nowadays, a lot of kids that we talk to, even at IBS, kids like, "Yeah, I've been working as a laborer for 3 years. Definitely going off my own next." And I'm like, no, why? Why not go, not abuse, but a lot of times employers take advantage of people that hustle.
Mm-hmm.
I've been on that side of it a bunch of times. And at a certain point, if you can realize that there's worth on what you can take from that company, not take, but learn from that company, is that, hey, this kid that was a laborer, and I'm like, hey, when they give you your lineup for the week, try and finish it by Wednesday. And then say, if I finish all this, can I go shadow the estimator for Thursday?
Mm-hmm.
Can I go shadow, one of the supers on Friday? That's how you gain the most out of that company instead of them just taking all your hard work. And I just don't know if people know the path anymore. If they,
But
go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna interject in saying that, as businesses too, I'm not sure that we've set up our skilled trades businesses, specifically skilled trades, to show that employee on day one, this is your path. This is how you grow. This is how you go from this entry level apprentice position through lead carpenter to moving into the office to management, project man. Like, I don't think we've defined that. So I think somewhere along the way, and to be honest, I think even social media is a little to blame for this. We've oversimplified it and said, well, if you want to be successful, you got to work for yourself.
Right.
But the reality is, if a guy who's working as an employee doesn't understand how much time it's going to take him, we were just talking about this at a team meeting this past week, where if a guy can't tell you how long they're going to need to complete a project when they're 90% of the way through, at what point do they learn that that's part of going off on your own? That's part of being able to run a sustainable company, right?
But at the same time, you realize if that person never realizes that, then they don't want to have their own thing. They don't want the responsibility of it. They just want to go through the days.
But arguably, I'm not sure that when you're sitting on IG flipping through feeds and you see these guys, I get these Johnny, I'm gonna pull that line, man. I get all these DMs.
It just sounds awful.
You guys are so popular.
So popular.
No, oh man, you're killing it, this and that. And to me, that is like, for 1 second, I appreciate that, but the other second, it's like, dude, no, you have no idea how much I'm not killing it.
You're almost aggravated, where it's like, I just want to tell you how much I'm not killing it.
Yeah, like, I'm killing it because there's days I have no choice. Like, you know what I'm saying? The reality is not every day is I kill it and I slayed it and I crushed it and I
think the biggest thing I always think about is like someone's like, that came out awesome. I'm like, that's one picture out of the 150 I took today. The other 149 are probably all problems. Right? Like you didn't see my camera roll.
but I also think that that's totally okay too. That it's okay that we share the side of, like, every day isn't perfect, and there's this human side of what we're all sharing. And
well, before we go down that, you had mentioned, the comment about going off on your own is how you become successful. And that's, we had a kid over at the Cape Cod Lumber, and he was on his own, and he was like, I just want to ask you guys a question. I just need to solidify my decision of closing my company and going back to work for someone because I hate running a company. And he said it. He was like, I felt like the only way I was going to be successful in this industry was to be on my own, and I hate it. And it's, I don't remember who said it, but they talk about, like, related to Facebook or Google, or like there has to be a number 2 and a number 3 and a number 4, and they're wildly successful too. It doesn't, just because you don't own it doesn't mean you can't be wildly successful.
And you might miss it, like that kid I talked to at IBS. Is that, God, this thing keeps going in and out.
Yeah, I don't know.
That
might be this.
Might be that. Is that, like, you don't know if you start climbing up that ladder and investigating these different areas. Maybe it isn't being on your own. Maybe it's being, director of operations. That's your niche for that company. Maybe they don't realize that you're that important or you're that driven unless you kind of make that drive to get there, or that find a route there.
Right. It's like like I can look at guys within my company. Ken came to me with
girls.
Yeah, guys and girl. But like Ken came in, and I always make the reference, but he came into no shop. It was just a space, and we talked about, hey, let's build a cabinet shop, and now we're building a cabinet shop, and it's becoming a really big part of what we are. That, like, he individually has successfully done that. It's currently my company, but that doesn't mean he's not he's not on the path for success within that, because if he drives that to be a more profitable part of this business, that can make everyone more profitable.
But I think that's where what, in saying that, Nick, you recognize that, right? So you're giving him props for saying, look at the value you're bringing. I think 30 years ago, those conversations weren't happening. Like you didn't. I think business now and structure and culture and what's going on now, or what I feel should be going on now, is something very different. And so I think by you recognizing that, it gives him a little piece, it gives him that ownership.
Well, think about like Johnny, you and Benny.
Mm-hmm. We're adorable together.
You guys are very cute. You make a great TV couple. but like going from working together, not for Vintage, you guys were employees, and you kind of his manager, but now you guys are partners. But what beyond the
what's funny is I never thought, I still don't, of anybody, is that I was his manager.
But I mean, technically,
I
were,
agreed,
right?
But it's more of like, how do you have to feel it out, where if he needs help, he's not going to ask for it, because everybody in this business has this kind of self-worth that they don't want to give up on it, and it's being there for somebody. So it's like there wasn't a single task that I would do differently.
But now that you guys are partners, it was more, what was the reason? I guess I'm assuming that you asked Benny about it, because I think it ultimately started with you, right?
To make him a partner?
Yeah.
Yeah, or to come with Vintage.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about, I think every company, when there's, I mean, what we want to talk about this podcast is really, company culture and the employment environment in general. Like I told Benny when we hired him that, we have the opportunity to build some really cool things.
Hired him at Vintage, right?
No, before.
Okay.
Before, when I hired him the first time.
Yep.
When my wife was like, you need somebody like you for you. Because I was running around doing everything, and she's like, this kid, I know him, blah, blah, he was great. So I went and had a drink with him and basically told him this. I go, hey, we're going to build some really cool things. Clients are amazing. You don't have to worry about too much about the numbers and have to penny pinch and all that. And I go, but the flip side is our boss can be really degrading, and, it can be really rough to work there. And I go, but the flip side is most of the time it's on our own, controlling our own environment. And there's those couple times, and I'll shield you of that. So I would take the burden of that. That's probably the only way you'd know that I was a manager above him, is just I would try and deal with more of that stuff. And when we were at that environment, there's more often those talks of going, hey, you know what? This could be way better. Like, we don't need to do this the way it is. And that would be a conversation often across the entire company. Like, even subs would come to you and go, you guys don't need that. And so then we were like, what would we do? Like, just, over coffee. Like, what would you do? Like, what would it be? And then people would come and go in the company, and they would just be like, I'm not doing this. Some people left. Like Kirk, he left the company and went and did commercial. Because he was ridden so hard that it was like, I don't want any of this.
That's the thing. I think you got two typical scenarios. One, I think a lot of guys, I think, go off to, they get into carpentry because they love carpentry. And I'm just going to be totally biased to carpentry, right? But they get into carpentry because they love carpentry. They start their business because that's just kind of evolution. That's kind of the next step. And somewhere along the way, that's what we're told, right? And then it's not until like year 2 or 3 where these guys realize, I'm not making any money. Well, I think you can be a fantastic carpenter and have no idea how to run or successfully build a business. I'm not saying you can't make a lot of money. I'm not saying you can't survive and stay busy for the next 20 years, but to build a business, build a real business with structure that operates when you're not around, that has processes and procedures that, God forbid something happens to you, that things don't things don't stop, right? Correct me if I'm wrong, Johnny, but you going off on your own probably felt a lot. It was probably more of that emotional decision than just the financial decision, right?
I mean,
Meaning,
it was two things. I mean, the financial thing became a reality because I was making good money, and then to take Benny and whoever else was coming along, that I would then have to be liable for them and their family.
Right.
That was the financial impact of, if you're gonna make this work, you can't just go out and feel your way out. You got to come out of the gates and lock up some work, like a lot of work.
Well, that's because of the point. That's because of the point you were in your life and making what you're making.
Exactly.
You know?
Yeah. To keep, I didn't want to have to compromise my life to make a change, but it had to happen because the health of my well-being and the people around me was really tough. Like, I didn't realize it till I left how much it impacted me.
I guess what I'm saying though, like arguably if I worked at McDonald's and I put in the same amount of hours at McDonald's, 80 hours a week, I would make good money. Point is, I think it's a sliding scale, right? So the ownership comes with more responsibility. With more responsibility, comes so many other things. I think when you're in that toxic culture, though, like, you want to get out of that toxic culture. I mean, we've had people within our company who've left making more money to get out of that kind of toxic environment. And I hate to say it, but I feel like this industry.
Anthony, let me correct you. You're saying that you guys left other companies because it was toxic. It was toxic to come work for you.
Yes.
Okay.
Correct.
Yeah. I think you said it the other way. I just want to make sure I correct you.
The toughest part about this whole thing is, like, the only decision in my entire career that I based on money was to go to my last company. The company before that, Boston Green Building, like, I went there and worked for free as an intern for, like, I don't know, 3 months to kind of get a feel for it, kind of make myself known, understand the systems. And then we tried to rebuild that company, and we did. And we rebuilt it to a point where it wasn't about profit. It was more about product and relationships and the people in. Like, we stayed on the weekends when we built the shop out, like the shop downstairs, and we built out the entire office. Exactly what you're doing here. Yeah. Like, we just brought the tools in. I was like, you know what? Right now we only have 4 spots for people. I go, I'll put an office here, put an office there. We'll put a lot of the desks so we could have like 4 interns. We made it cool, and we did all the compound ourselves because we knew we were scraping together to make it happen. But that pulled us all together. It was like building a fort when you're 6. It's like there's something about that camaraderie that you've built this. It might fall apart in the next rainstorm, but like, you were all in this and you enjoyed sitting in it, and it made the company come together. And like, when I got approached, and it's funny, I was posting a lot more on LinkedIn back then, so people were following along. So I got approached, and I thought it was an approach to have one of our managers go work as a manager. Like, we would manage those projects. And then at the end of the conversation, I walked through 3 projects, and they were like, you know what, this could be very lucrative for you. And I was like, I'm good, peace. And then I got an email with like, you should really look into this. And I ignored it because I really loved what we had built there. Like, the community, the guys, the girls, everybody that was there. It was like, I would rather go to work, make $65,000 a year, and really enjoy everybody. Like, have the music bumping. My office door is always open. I can slide into any site, any client. It was work, but everyone put the work in, and no one really looked at the hours. That's the key. If you can create that environment where you're putting it in, I don't know what that sound is.
That's my dog scratching.
And that was the goal. And I was really bummed after 3 years that we had finally created that space. We had a cookout at the shop, and we had like 85 people show up.
Yeah.
And it was just it was like that family that, and clients could see it. Subs would see it. Subs would want to be involved in it, and to walk away from that was really tough for me. And
so do you think, Johnny, that I guess Tyler, Nick, I'm curious what your guys' thoughts are. Do you think that the mentality nowadays is, I want to go on my own because I want something different, like in respect to that culture? Because I really think that's a lot of what it is, that a lot of guys who go off and start their own thing, I think they're leaving something that they're either not happy with or they hate. I don't think it's just a money thing.
I think it's green on the other side, right?
Yeah, I think a lot of people, it is a financial thing. I think that the cost of living is way more expensive now than like, the heck is my dog like barfing up right now? I think that the cost of living is way more now. And then people see what customers are paying for jobs, or they see what you're able to charge, and they look at the numbers of that and they're like, well, he's making this much more than me. I need to be able to afford this. Most contractors on smaller companies would struggle to pay somebody a wage, benefits, everything that comes along with that. So I think that most people probably see, well, I could make this much if I went out on my own. Right. And they don't understand all the costs and the overhead, and that, right, you know, you're now taking a 40-hour week that you're bringing home $50,000-$60,000. And so maybe in 5 years you can make 100, but you're working 3-4 times as much, and they don't weigh that out. And maybe long-term you can make more money. But like your take home when you first start a business, unless you're in the position like John, what you hit the ground running with, most people aren't going to do that, because most people are going off on their own, are starting on their own, coming from being a carpenter and then starting small, and they don't have a lot on their shoulders, and they take work as they can get it. And you're not going to make any money for 3 years, 5 years. And then at that point, you're probably not making what you were before. You just have tax incentives and everything else. But I would say that a lot of it is probably that you could probably make 40 grand a year as a carpenter 25 years ago, which would be way easier to live off that than making 40 grand a year now as a carpenter and living off that.
But can you do it in some economies?
Yeah.
Like,
I'm sure you can
stay as a carpenter.
Yeah, but so I agree, Tyler, that there's a lot of financial decision to go off on your own. But I also, to Anthony's point, I really think a lot of these guys are leaving jobs that, you know, like John, you were building cool stuff. There was just one part of it that was really not great. Yeah. And I think a lot of people are in that position where it's like, yeah, we're building cool homes, but my boss is breathing down my neck every day, and it's always rush this to rush that, and we'll make it, you know, we'll get it on the next one. And I want to do this and put as much, you know, effort and pride into this as I can, and the only way I can do that is on my own. You know, I think that's the way I looked at it. So that's why I put such a heavy focus on when we were hiring people, is that we will give you the opportunity to do everything that you want and take as much time that you need to make something right, because we believe that the long-term benefit of that is that you know, it's easy. I always say it's easier to be good than fast than good. I'd rather you hone in on your skills and become really great at what you do and become efficient because of it.
Yeah, but I think you guys are also, I mean, everyone here is afforded that luxury, whether it's because of the client base, the budget of the projects, and everything else. Even being able to afford to pay an employee a certain salary and then give them stipends or a cell phone. I would venture to say that the bulk of the market of the construction industry they're not able to charge enough on a job to
Sure.
offer. You know, we're seeing it from a very small niche part of this market.
But I guess that's not really my understood, but that's not really my point. My point is that, you know, people look at it as I need to be off of my own in order to be able to do my best work, or you need to find a company that is willing to allow you to do your best work.
But I feel like that's a very small part. I don't think that that's the majority of people that are going off on their own. I think that like your mindset and what you have in like this whole new word culture that everyone uses within the construction industry, like that was never a thing until recently.
Right.
Even like your brand in construction, that wasn't a thing until recently. I think that people are leaving jobs or coming to work for you guys for reasons that aren't the majority. That's not the, I don't think that that's the majority of the market or the majority of companies.
We're
I
the
think that
exception.
most,
Yeah.
I think that most people who are looking to go off on their own, it's because they're in a situation where they, you know, there's not an ability to go work for somebody and make a decent salary and have a good company culture and get benefits in our industry.
But do you think we're trending towards that?
I mean, I would like to say that because I think that that's probably the biggest issue with the skilled trades, you know, that everyone can start a company now, that point of entry. So most of the companies in our industry aren't big enough to support that type of infrastructure within their own company. So everyone's starting these small companies. But I think that if you get to the heart of it, that's one of the huge reasons why we have this skilled labor gap, because nobody is afforded that luxury. There's a very small percentage of kids who are going to get done college and have an opportunity to work like for somebody like you or like Anthony or like John. Most people who come out and want to work in a construction job, they're going to go work commercial and get into like the management, estimation, or they could go maybe union or something like that, which is a decent path. But for residential, most people are going to go work for somebody like me. Go work for like a really small company who doesn't make enough on their own to then pay somebody enough to have that.
So I 100% agree with you, Tyler. But I guess here's my thing is, like, look at my company 9 years ago. We weren't doing what we're doing now, right? I mean, I didn't have the employees, like I didn't have that type of work. I think so to that point, I'm not sure everybody is cut out to risk and put in the work and do a lot of what that's taken over the last 9 years or you know, Johnny the last 15, or do you know what I'm saying? So I think, yeah, you're right. I don't think NS Builders, Probuilt, you know, Vintage, I realize that's probably not the standard. But that didn't start, like, that wasn't day one.
That's not where we started, right?
Right.
No, but you guys are there because of the reasons that you're there. And I think that anyone who's starting I think that even as far as starting a business, we are all the exception of our industry.
Right.
I don't think that the majority of our industry is the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 people sitting here.
I
agree.
Yeah.
I think
4 people sitting here right now. It's the majority of our industry is when you go to Home Depot and you see like and that's not a knock at anyone. That's just that's what the majority of consumers want and need that. And I think that's what it is. And I think that the big picture issue is that there's not enough money in what we do to provide for the big numbers, not just for small people, for the masses to provide these jobs that can sustain a lifestyle of the cost of living today.
But I think that goes back to that point where you get a lot of you had a lot. I hate painting. I don't want to like trash on those before me, and I realize I'm painting with a super broad stroke brush, but I think as an industry over the last 20, 30 years, we have not as a whole, again, not individually. I know there's a ton of guys who've done it right, but we haven't. What have we done to kind of set the standard that, you should send your kids to a vocational school. You should get them in the trade. Like, I just don't think. I think a lot of those guys that the one-man operation, I think that's part of that whole, like, they never had any intentions of building a business. So how are they going to offer? How do they offer those same incentives, right? How do they continue to grow when arguably they're not pushing themselves to grow?
And I don't think that they necessarily can, but I think that a lot of those 1-2 man operations got into business for themselves to be able to make more money than whatever they're making working for somebody else in a 1-2 man operation.
I agree.
Which I think that, I mean, there's numerous issues with that, but I don't think that our little microcosm of the construction industry is indicative of the overall health of the industry. And I mean, even from an economy standpoint, there's a lot of things that we're all doing right now that if the jobs weren't rolling in as they were, or the numbers aren't as they were, it would be very tough to sustain the size and the scale of what we're doing if things dried up.
So to that point, Tyler, like what John talks about, with economy corrections and things like that, there's so many guys that are off on their own right now because, as John says, times are good, right? So
they can,
but right, and they can, and there's support there. So I guess what I was getting at with, do I think that this is trending towards, let's use the word collaboration, we're collaborating rather than competing with each other. Yeah, we're off on our own, but when times get tough, do we set this standard and this culture and this understanding that then we band together when times are tough?
Yeah, I got another question. Tyler, go ahead.
I think that is a wonderful outlook to have.
I'm optimistic,
but I think that if things took a nosedive, that it'd be a lot of every man or woman for themselves.
So the question is, how did we change that?
Which I think realistically, I believe that a lot of it depends on the consumer.
Yeah,
I think
100%.
If the consumer is willing or realizes the value in what the difference between companies, the difference between what you're offering, and people valued more of what we do as a whole, as a skilled trade, rather than anyone can do it. We could do it ourselves and not have to pay somebody or save, we could demo it ourselves or whatever. Like, I think that if there were more emphasis put on that, and the consumer valued what we did more, that they would be willing to pay more. But I don't think there's so many people out there that are willing to do it for so much less money that it's very hard for the consumers to pay more when they don't truly understand what that more is.
Right, because it's so short term. It's like, it's like underpaying someone for a job to get the job done under budget, when in the long term you do that over and over and over, they don't make enough money to survive.
Yeah.
Well, I also think the low bid becomes the standard, and it's anybody who's beyond that standard is, taking advantage, or you're too expensive. I mean, too expensive based off of what?
But based off of what research? Because everyone's so impatient that there's very few people that really vet people out like they do Nick and you guys and Tyler, that they really know you. A lot of people that we're talking about, they don't look in. They look on Angie's list and get the first 6 people that call them, and that's business. So I don't think that market's ever going to change.
But I think we need, as an industry, we need to flush the industry of the. First off, I think guys need to start valuing their skill set and their profession. I mean, and I'm not sure that this happens. We can't go back in time. So, I think there's some lost hope, but in this next generation. So this whole Keep Craft Alive campaign and push, right? Let me ask this. Okay, you got an 18-year-old kid, and Nick, I think me and you talked about this at IBS. You got an 18-year-old kid, just came out of high school. He wants to get in the skilled trades. So now he's gonna work with the trim carpenter who's doing production homes, and that guy's going to tell him, look, meet me at 6 a.m. at Tim Hortons. I'll pick you up there. We'll drive to the job together. The dude's going to smoke 2 packs on the way there. You're going to pick him up in his 20-year-old van, pull out tools that he bought back in 1972, and push, fly, we got to get it done. Again, there's a time, there's a market, there's a place, whatever. My point is, how does this kid look at this 65-year-old man and say, that's as good as it gets for me? Like if I succeed and I can say,
but he doesn't know any better.
Right. Well, in that current situation, right? He doesn't know any better.
He doesn't know any better, which is 100% why now he goes home and talks to his parents, and they say, well, honey, that's why I told you, the skilled trades. I mean, that's the skilled trade, because even they don't know any better.
But look anywhere, people pushing paper or the bank teller.
Oh,
it's common. I mean, it is what it is. I mean, it's really tough to figure out when the markets are so different from state to state, from town to town.
Right, which is, I mean, I feel like we're starting to get we're almost filtering ourselves because of everyone kind of feedbacking, saying, well, that's not my market. But let's push that aside, right? How do you change that kid's perception? And the Keep Craft Alive movement and all of these things, the skilled trades, it's exposure. And I think everyone is so focused on the skilled trades gap in a big picture, meaning like, globally, nationally, statewide, where it's like, if you just focus on the individuals that you have control over.
Yes.
I hate to say control over, but who you're directly, influence, right?
Yeah.
So then they tell people, and then that grows to a person, to a town, to a school, to a district, to a state, et cetera, et cetera. And we talked about this at the Keep Craft Alive event. But that, if we're not promoting the fact that this can be good, that's how we're doing a disservice. And I think now that everything is so in front of people, we're all watching everyone get incrementally better at what they do if they're actively involved in the industry. Meaning, right, when I watch someone build something and they did it better than we have, I learn from that. And you're doing the same thing, and we're all doing that, and we're watching. And it's this coattail effect of everyone is striving to be a little bit better because they want to post the tightest miter, or the fastest frame of a house, whatever, like the tightest roof. All of these things, everyone is.
It's the most complicated roof.
Sorry,
I got the word for that.
Best of social. But it is they're small wins, but I think that they're equaling something really big, and we're watching this happen. It's almost like hanging out with someone every single day, and they lose a bunch of weight. The guy, if you hang out with them every day, they don't ever look any different because you're seeing it done incrementally. If you were to leave the industry for 2 years and then come back in 2 years from now, it would be wildly different. But for me, if I don't leave, I'm just going to see these incremental changes and never know. And I think
this is why we're different, because the guy in my example gets really fat. Yours gets really skinny.
So I think to that point, I guess it's like we can't go back. A few things. We can't go back in time. We can't change people's perception. We can't change.
But Anthony, I think to get to your point, you said like that. You said that this is what the kid does, and he comes home. And I said he doesn't know any better. Now he does through the power of social media.
Yes, 100%.
Now he can go and go, you know what, this isn't the right fit for me. I need to go find somewhere else that's going to be a better fit. And if I need to move, they know that now. Where like the first 10 people that you work for all could have sucked. I mean, everyone moved on from a job because they didn't make enough money or they didn't learn enough. Right. And now they realize they can learn somewhere else. Yep. Like go work for Tyler.
That's what I'm saying, though. I mean, so now, one, I say right? Forget about leading up to this, but I don't believe that we need to keep craft alive, because I don't think craft is dead. I think you get the people that appreciate it and the people that don't appreciate it. I do think.
I don't know, man. That's a tough one.
Yeah.
I feel like every day the craft's dying a little bit because less and less people know how to do stuff, because less and less people are taking stuff apart in my area that I didn't learn.
But I think that's just what you define as craft or craftsmanship.
Oh, that's a good one. Okay, let's dig into that.
I want to dig into. All right, go ahead.
No, I think you're defining craftsmanship based on the knowledge of being able to do a certain task. Where we're in, this is the world we live in. We constantly are evolving and innovating, and creating systems to make us more efficient at everything we do. And I don't think by simplifying a task means that you're removing the craftsmanship from it.
I think that
I feel like, isn't the definition of a craftsman basically being able to make something with your hands?
Yeah.
We can look it up.
I mean, I feel like it's something along those lines.
I think it's something like a.
Is it bad that we have to look it up right now? Shouldn't we know this? You shouldn't.
Craftsmanship means skill in a particular craft.
Oh, thanks.
Let me see.
Yeah.
Define craftsman.
Here's what I found.
Define craftsman.
I found this on the web.
Siri's not much help.
Wow.
I'm just gonna Google it
That was
since
weak.
that was painful. All right, so
use
define.
You know it's 2020 when we're trying to find the answer.
A person who is skilled in a particular craft. That's it. That's what a craftsman is.
Yeah, so I just think that, how many people, after the Kukin thing, Tyler, people come to me and go, how do you really know the height of a chair rail? How do you know this stuff? They just, there's no place, it's obvious to you and I. Go ahead.
Don't mean to interrupt you, John, but the definition of craft is an activity involving skill in making things by hand. Okay. So a craftsman would basically be the person, which is
I guess
activity or involving skill making something by hand.
Right. So the by hand is where you're getting tripped up.
I didn't know I was getting tripped up. I think we all. No, I think we could all have. I think we could all have different descriptions of craftsmanship.
No, I know.
Well, so I guess my question is, we all keep talking about skilled trades. Why did we have to add skilled in front of it? Why couldn't the trades just be assumed that we're skilled?
Fair.
I don't understand why we have to keep putting that in front of it, where back in the day, the trades were people that just worked with their hands.
Mm-hmm.
And
I think it's probably to glamorize it some, because everyone says you don't want to work in the trades. You don't want to make things with your hands. If it's called a skilled trade, it's probably a marketing or a way to promote that some, to make it sound a little less prehistoric.
It's just so weird for me, growing up kind of in the industry and in a family company, that were tradesmen. I never viewed the skilled trades as this lesser than path, or it's just funny how when I hear people talk in certain perspectives, I don't know if I was just so ingrained in it that I never. So as I say, skilled trades, that doesn't even cross my mind. You know what I mean?
I think that a lot of it for me, obviously there's the handmade component to it, but I think that a lot of it for me, with what Nick had kind of mentioned with the materials that are simplifying things, I think the issue with that is it's taking the mental aspect and the thought process out of it, which I think short term is good, and it may pick up work. People are able to do things that they weren't able to do. But I think now, you're thinking less as you're going through the motions. And when you've run into an issue or when you see something, you don't know how to problem solve. You don't know what it should look like. And a good example of that would be the auto industry now. Anybody who comes out of school and trained to be a technician now works for these big dealers. They're not allowed to go in and diagnose anything. They have to plug the car in. It tells them what to fix. And then if it's a warranty issue, they go and they walk them through. You're going to try this first. If that doesn't work, you're going to do this. And now they're just going through the motions and they're not thinking for themselves. And they could be doing 3 times more work or being completely inefficient or not have any concept of what they're doing because somebody's now just telling them what to do and walking through this process. And I feel like at that point, the craftsmanship is lost because it's not somebody coming in. And it's not that it's better or it's worse, but I think that there's so much less knowledge out there now, which is really hindering a lot of people and hindering the industry.
I would challenge that a little bit for a couple reasons. One, I think, and maybe it's not exactly how you meant it, Tyler, but I actually think there's more knowledge. There's more access to information now than there's ever been. You know, and then to the point of
there's also a lot of crappy knowledge out there.
Oh,
there's a lot
I
of
agree.
people pitching stuff that.
I agree 100%. I agree 100%. But let's take nailing off a casing, for example. I don't think me nailing off a casing to a jam is any less craftsmanship with my Senko 18 gauge than, you know, driving nails by hand.
No, but the difference is that when that nail doesn't get set all the way, the young carpenter doesn't know what to do. He'll leave it for the painter.
To me, that's on him. I think when
that's the craftsmanship. He doesn't know enough about the craft that we're trying to do.
Well, I think to Anthony's point, it's
how
I think we're not. I don't want to say confusing, but I think
say confusing.
Huh?
We can say confusing.
No, but it's not that. It's the fact that just because things are becoming simpler and that products are becoming easier to install and more mindless doesn't automatically mean that these people don't know. Like they're required to know less, but there's still the opportunity to excel.
I'm with you, but
so how about the same example where you're now nailing off the casing by hand? That casing would need to fit a lot better if you had to roll that miter or something else, hand nailing it versus nailing it with a gun. So if you go back 100 years ago, there's going to be a lot more well-fit carpentry because even think crown molding. Think if you had to hand nail crown molding, fitting an outside miter, you know, that would all have to be fit so much better because you don't have the ability to manipulate things while you're doing it and everything else. So it's give and take with that.
I have a very different mindset, specifically because I don't, you know, I'm not taking that approach that just blast more nails. So like we have a consistent, like at the apprentice level, all the way through lead carpenter level, a huge thing within our company is consistency, right? So we're teaching guys nailing patterns. This is our standard nailing pattern. Meaning it's methodical. The reason why you don't look at casings, and don't put me on the record as saying this is why, but in my opinion, you didn't see casings peppered with nails 80 years ago, is these guys it was more work for them to throw, you know, nails every 3 inches, you know, than pull the trigger a bunch of times. Do you know what I'm saying?
I mean, it's also they're probably painting their own work at that point.
Right. But what I'm saying is I promise I can get a better miter with modern day equipment than I could 10 years ago, more efficiently, right?
I hope so.
More
Isn't
efficient.
that the point?
Right. So what I'm saying is
well, I think it's the give and take that Johnny mentions. It's, you know, it has to be give and take.
There has to be products. I guess my only glitch is that you're talking about all the knowledge that's available. and I love the fact that there's products out there that save time and effort. In my point of view, I would love that time and effort that's saved to be put into learning more about what it is that you're doing and why you're doing it, and not just spitting on to the next thing, which is what the majority of what everyone does.
But we're also, I think we're generalizing these products that are making things mindless, more broad, where it's like, I'm going to use vinyl siding as an example.
Use Tyvek.
Yeah, I don't think it's mindless though. And again, I can only speak to.
Well, there are. I mean, Anthony,
craft,
there's definitely products out there that make stuff mindless and end up with a quarter,
like a weedy tile pan.
Right. So
compared to like doing a custom floated shower.
And I think to Johnny's point, it's not like the weedy tile pan isn't an issue. It's the fact that when you do need to do a mud set, you don't know how to do it.
So that guy who, let's say the apprentice that came on,
or they don't understand tile pitch, like from a bit, or they don't understand waterproofing, or they don't. There's many issues with that. I mean, I had the So I was driving by a house today I texted you guys this, in a nice town, and it's a brand new custom build, and they have zip on the outside, and they're running tar paper with cedar shingles. And it's stuff like that where whoever's doing that it's not that they're not getting paid enough. And there's plenty of knowledge out there, like Anthony said, but like there's been so many systems, like they say, hey, zip, it's all waterproof. I don't need to worry about anything. We can just put what we always put however long ago, but now this house is tighter. So now there's no breather, there's no air gap, there's nowhere for it to go. It's trapped now between the shakes and the zip. And it's an issue because now this house is tighter and it can't dry out from the inside like they could 50, 100 years ago, even 25 years ago, even when it's just Tyvek where the seams aren't taped. So like a lot of these products that are coming out, they're making it easier on one person, but then the next trade that comes along, or, they're not, all they're thinking is, hey, it's waterproof. But what about ensuring that breathes?
I think that's a great example of the weedy thing. So let's say, Tyler, you know how to do a dry pack, bed. And then you just say, hey, you know what? The next guy that does it, that's underneath you, just says, I'm gonna order the weedy. But he knows how to do the dry pack bed with you. Yeah. Then the next guy that gets hired only sees the weedy. And then that generation, let's say you then retire. Now there's a generation where the craft is lost because no one really knows the pan. Let's say some client comes to you with a different size shower. Now the knowledge is with the production of the company that's making that weedy stuff, and not with the people on the ground that were craftsmen.
But do you think that is a product issue or an education issue?
I think this started with the craft, Anthony challenging that the craft is not dying. In my eyes, is that it's the argument we had with Kevin O'Connor. It's not the products. I will buy a new washer and dryer. I'm not going down to the creek to wash my shirt. Okay? It's the fact that if you're going to do that, then it should give you enough time to teach the new people on the staff or on the crew what the means and methods are, so that way the craft does stay alive.
That's fair. I mean, the product development.
Anthony's shaking his head.
But no, and because my only complaint is that I still think there's always been the guys who care and the guys who don't. And I still think, and maybe even more so today, from seeing guys on IG and some of this exposure, that like I always think there has so the guy that doesn't have product knowledge, right? That doesn't understand waterproofing. I mean, I can only really speak to my specific trade. I feel like it's what I know best. For a guy to be able to properly install a pre-hung door, I don't think that makes him less of a carpenter than hanging a door, truly hanging and fitting a door. I think it's two different skill sets.
Are we talking new construction? Or are we talking, like, tell me the guy that knows how to hang a door in a new construction for you can go to an 1810 house and adjust a door or rehang a door in a house like that. That's where the craft is lost.
And I think maybe as big picture, possibly. I don't know. I have a very different
You got to
look
give
at
me
the
more than
trade.
that, because I think there's
Yeah.
guys that don't know how to like adjust a hinge and know how if a door's blowing out the bottom that it's got to be the top, because that's
nobody's ever invested in that.
no, because they're shooting on pre-hung doors in a house that's brand new and they don't know how. It's that coming up part of it. Is that
Joe,
everyone wants to take 2 years, go off on their own. 2 years, work for somebody else.
And I agree with that. I agree with that.
They're not learning it as a laborer up to, carpenter's assistant, apprentice to whatever, and that's what's getting lost. Everyone's fast tracking it because the economy is so good.
I've also had guys who come in who say they have 40 years experience who cannot properly install a pre-hung door. Like, there's a process to that, right? And I also realize I don't view my trade as most, but to me there's a process, and there's a shimming pattern that when it's not a, well, if this happens then you put a shim here. It's every single time that so now we can teach that process. So I have guys.
That's called your craft.
100%. So
where are you putting hinges? I mean, where are you putting shims? Sorry.
Where we're putting shims. So for our first 2 shims are pinning our head jam. Third shim's going at our bottom bit. Most of our doors are 8.0 solid core. So that next shim is going right at that bottom hinge. Right now,
the bottom hinge or on the floor?
No, bottom hinge. Right. So now we're pulling, essentially straight from your top head to bottom hinge. Right. And then we fill in. Right. So now we're pulling doors off, we're pulling door stops. I mean, my point is that it's a very standardized process. When we build casings, we bench build every casing. I would love the challenge of tell me why you shouldn't bench build a casing. If someone says it's slower, I guarantee you.
I think that there's a benefit to teaching people. I would love to pre-assemble things as much as possible, but a lot of jobs that we walk into, it doesn't make sense. I think that the issue with, like, I taught Steve how to build everything pre-assembling. If he ran into my house, for example, which is 120 years old and had to trim a door out with miters here, like, they don't understand even setting a door. So they would lose sight of the fact that cheat the bottoms, not the top. Keep the jams even on the top so your miters are good, and then whatever you have to do at the bottom, you can whack out to correct cross-legged. Or they wouldn't know how to roll a miter. They wouldn't know what adjustments they had to make to tighten that up without pre-assembling it, letting the glue sit, and then clamping with the clamp outside the window to draw it tight to the wall. There's so many little finesse things that you can do where you should understand those components of carpentry, because at some point you're going to run into them. And if they don't know that, they're going to get a screw and they're going to drive it to the wall, or it's going to pop the miter at some point. Where I just think if you know those things, you don't need to have them in place every day, but one thing leads to another and they all build off one another. And if you understand those principles, then when you need to make those minor adjustments, you can make them. I think that it's not just about creating systems and processes for best case scenario in every house. I think in order to have that craft and be a craftsman, you have to know how to be able to do that in a lot of different scenarios. And it's not just all bench built. It's not just all new construction. It's like there's a production mindset, there's a custom mindset, there's semi-custom everything. But that craft is knowing your entire craft in and out, whether it's new construction, old house remodels. And I think that that's a big difference for me. And I think that so think a biscuit joiner or a domino or reinforcing your miters. Mm-hmm. A lot of that, one is because wood's not as stable as it were 100 years ago. The other thing is that we're not adjusting for things. People are trying to manipulate pre-assembled casings or banging out drywall and everything else, where if you understood how to set that door in the first place, and it was cross-legged rather than screwing with your top or your miters are adjusted at the bottom and do what you have to do, or roll your miters and making those adjustments so that nobody ever knew the difference, which nobody knows how to do anymore.
But isn't that all part of the training process, right? I mean, it's not a robot thing. Like, we're going to bench build and like there is training in that. And like, you get a guy who starts rolling a 5.5-inch flat stock casing, like, you are going to see that in finish. Like, do you know what I'm saying? So I don't want to underestimate, because I think we're probably all saying the same thing, in the sense that part of where we're at right now as an industry is the lack of investing in the guys, quote unquote, beneath us, that, we're going to save those tricks. We're not going to teach them. We don't want them to outgrow us. And I think it goes back to the culture thing. Like, I don't want to be the best carpenter in my company. Like, I'm completely okay with that. I would 100% say that wasn't always the case, because I think who I identified myself with, like, that's what made me the, again, quote unquote, boss, right? I gotta know it all. I gotta have all the answers.
So everyone, what I wanted to touch on earlier, culture, everyone wants to talk about culture and what that is. And I mean, to put the other side of the spectrum, I think that a lot of people view culture as, they can come into this company and I'm going to get to use new tools, and we work on really cool builds, and we all have uniforms. There's certain incentives to having that job. A lot of people can put that into place because of the jobs that they have. But what happens now when you start losing some of those jobs, or the economy starts to tank and you slow down and you start, hey, you know what, guys, we can't afford company jackets this year. Or, you know what, you have to use the 10-year-old miter saw over there because we can't afford a new one right now. Is that culture actually built from an emotional culture within the company? Or is that just like, we're putting this on Instagram, it looks very nice to work for us, we're incentivizing certain things that we do, but when things slow down, you're going to be able to sustain that? Is that culture going to be the same?
So I think that's the difference between culture and running a sustainable business. I think you have two different spectrums there.
So what happens if wherever your work is coming from right now, if that dries up? What does that look like for your company? Is it laying people off?
No. I mean, in the last 9 years, we've never kept anybody at home, right?
Have we had any sort of recession?
No. But to that point, I mean, 100% to that point. Like, when do you start to focus on building the business? When the economy is tanking, and like right now, our numbers are the same as they were 5 years ago. Like,
I know, but what Tyler's at, like, I think
which one do you hold on to?
Yeah, that exactly. Tyler's asking, do you hold on to the culture or do you hold on to the employees? And I think if you hold on to the employees, the culture sucks.
Can you sustain what you're doing within your company right now if half your work dried up in the next 2 years? Or would you have to let people go?
But I think you're defining culture by a material kind of money thing.
No, I'm asking you what you are. Like, would it be, hey, I'm going to hold on to all my employees and I'm going to keep them busy and we're going to cut back on certain incentives that we have for them? Or are you going to lay people off and keep the same everything in place as you have right now?
100%. It's people. I mean, it's the reason why I should have moved shops 5-6 years ago.
You would keep people. Is that what you're saying?
100%. Yeah. It's the same reason why, my desktop has a giant crack, on my 9-year-old Mac, yet our project manager has a brand new Mac. I mean, I think the thing is
but you're talking about culture and it's material and everything else. But like, if it's a good culture, why does he need a brand new Mac?
No, but what I'm saying is, is the jackets, all that, those are all financial decisions. I don't think that has anything to do with culture. I think the culture is defined by guys coming and enjoying where they're at, enjoying the work that they're doing, enjoying who they're working with, working for. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, but then again, like why the new computer if it's culture and everyone's there for a certain reason in the business that you're building? Like even culture, it shouldn't matter whether the guy's riding in a truck and smoking 2 packs of cigarettes and that's as good as it gets. If you have a camaraderie with that guy and he treats you well and you have a great relationship,
100%.
like how that could be as good as it gets for somebody. And that could be like, hey, this is what I want for my life. This is perfect. I have a 65-year-old guy who gets up. He has tools that he loves, that he takes care of. And like maybe he's not well branded. Maybe he has an old van. Maybe he doesn't give you new jackets or a cell phone. But like that culture within that company is defined in its own sense. And it's not that one's better or the other.
But with that guy, everything's paid for.
That's
the one thing I love about that story.
But the
even the
problem
smokes are paid for.
But the problem is, you guys are that story. You're turning on that different side of that story, right? It's the what the hell's the matter with you? You know, are you an idiot? You know, this is why I can't teach you nothing. You know, run out there like I think there's so many guys listening to this podcast that can identify with the being downgraded and you're an idiot because you messed up and I can't trust you with anything. And you know, kind of the I'm the boss mentality. I just
the tough love.
Yeah, but there's no, to some respect, there's no place for that these days. Tough love is one thing, but to disrespect someone, nobody wakes up and comes to work for you to do a bad job.
Yeah, but
right?
you're saying this like I'll say it as you don't always get the best clients. Not every client's going to be the right guy or girl that's going to treat you right and see how it's going to all shape up. That's going to trust you. Everyone's got their own personality.
But are you talking from an employee standpoint?
I'm saying it from both angles. Yeah.
Well, yeah.
There's parents that parent a different way.
Right, but that's on you as the owner to bring people into a company that fits that culture. Like,
but what are you describing though? You're describing that there's people listening to this podcast that are what?
I think there's a lot of guys who can identify with not feeling appreciated, not feeling respected, not feeling valued. So when we ask, what would I do if all of our work dried up? Like, to me, that's almost like the answer almost should be known.
It's tough. It's tough because I think about it too, right? So I think, you know, what Tyler's getting to is, you know, if all your work dried up and you had the opportunity to either A, let everyone go, and that would give them the opportunity to find something else that they would like doing, or B, you keep them around and you would make things work in the meantime, meaning that everything changes. You're taking on projects that aren't as cool. You're taking on projects that they might not be excited for, or you're taking on projects that might not allow you to put the level of time that you really want. So that's where that sacrifice comes from. The culture side of it is now you're adapting the business to stay busy.
But there's also that point where you can do that. You can say you're going to keep everybody. I would think that in a company that understood the ethos of what's going on in the culture, that they would know someone's going to get cut. They would already know that this is going to happen, because you can say what you want, but once payroll comes around for that third month in a row and things are tight, you're not the same dude that you were 6 months ago.
Right.
When you walk in that office. You're going to walk in there bitter, disgruntled. Your wife's going to be pissed at you that you're taking money out of the savings account to pay for some kid that really may not even understand how valuable the situation is that he has or her.
I mean, I guess my other point is that I think that there's this new word that everyone's using, culture, within companies. And I believe it to a certain effect, but I also think that it's a lot of it, and this isn't you, Anthony, this isn't Nick.
Yeah, no,
I'm just saying like there's companies now that have alcohol in their office, and Nick and I went and did a tour for a countertop company, and one of the companies that they had installed their tops in, there's TVs, there's pods that you can work in, there's beer on the counter for whenever you want, and that's like the culture that these younger generation sees and wants, and they don't necessarily want it. Like I could see an issue with people wanting to work for you or Nick because they see what's on Instagram and they see the nice tools and they see what they perceive as culture.
Right.
But when things start to fail, I guarantee the first thing to go is the kegerator's not going to be filled up with beer. And that's what these people are seeing as culture when it's not actually culture. And that's not you, that's not Nick, but this whole thing where people we're going to create a culture that our company likes, and it's new vehicles and it's new tools and it's shirts and it's jackets. When that goes, is your employee base going to stand behind you? Is the culture that you think you're developing actually the culture that your employees see?
I think that's that's a good point. It's the perception of what they believe the culture is made up of.
Yeah. And I think that it's been over the past 10 years, so much of this, all the apps that are coming out and these companies that are blowing up, and they're creating this whole buzz around culture. And it's a great company to work for, where at the heart of it, you're looking to pay your bills and support your family. And when things tighten up, all these companies that frivolously spend and grow and have these parties and everything else, when that starts to downturn or when the economy tanks, those are the first things that they're going to cut. They're not going to cut their employees. Like they're going to try and hold on to them. They're not going to cut the overhead that they need in the company vehicles. Like, it's going to be those things that I think a lot of people find intriguing in your company.
But I guess my only thing is I just don't define all that as culture. Like, I
don't, Tyler doesn't, John doesn't, but the perception of the employees might.
And I think a lot of kids who are looking to get into the industry probably do.
Yeah, but I think just because you have a ping pong table in your break room doesn't mean you have good company culture.
Of course not.
Like, do you know what I'm saying? And so I guess, to that point, I can see somebody coming in. Our branded shirts, that's a marketing thing, right? Has nothing. I honestly don't know that our guys would care whether, I see them as excited when we get new gear and whatever. My whole thing is I think we have two choices in business, right? We choose to either invest in people or we don't invest in people. It's either we are in it for the money, and it's that kind of cutthroat it's just business mentality, or it's this kind of long-term kind of big picture thing, which is investing in people, and it's putting them first and allowing guys to come into a company, show them the path through the company and let them excel. Like, I would hate to see anybody leave the company. Like, it would break my heart, because I look at these guys as friends, as family in a sense, but like, would I despise them? Do I hate them? No. I mean, get ready, right? I mean, it's like, my point is I don't think there should be tactics to keep people. I think my approach is I want to create a business where guys can come in and learn and grow, and they can build some awesome stuff. And at the end of the day, they can turn their phone off, work their 40 hours and be at home with their family. Like,
you say that's what you want to do, but isn't that like, how are you doing that?
No, I mean, that's what's happening.
Right.
Like,
how? But how? Like, what you're saying you're investing in people, but in what sense do you see Like, what would you classify as your investment into the people that work for you?
Our investment is we're bringing guys in with zero experience.
All of them?
Right? Not all of them, most of them. I would say 80% of our 11 guys started with me.
In the industry
started
with
the
you.
industry with me and worked side by side with me every single day. You know, it's from whether it's team meetings to kind of just these morning huddles or sharing the process, right? Guys, this is how we're going to standardize this detail throughout the company. This is the procedure. We've got builds that literally a $10,000 built-in that runs over budget. Like I don't feel that it's a lack of effort. I don't feel it's because the guy didn't care or he wasn't motivated.
You can't with that situation you've created. You can only value it as that they try hard because why not hire 2 young guys and hire an older guy that has more experience?
Why? Because
because you want to control them?
Nope.
Do you are you discriminating against older people?
Johnny, because look at our projects, look at what we're producing.
I'm looking beyond that. I'm looking at you personally. That is there a point in your time where when you started with your father that when there's older people that question what you do, that it's just a simpler place to work for you to have people that don't question you?
No, I as a matter of fact, they
don't know any questions to ask if you're hiring everyone that's green and has no idea. They're never going to challenge you, my friend.
But
by the time they do, they're at the breaking point that they either leave or they just settle.
But look at what we're doing. I
look at a lot of people and what they do. It's the economy. It's how everything rolls. It's everyone's doing good. If you're not busy right now,
I'm not talking. No. I'm not talking a numbers thing. I'm not talking. Look how many projects. Look at the people we're producing. Look at the people who left corporate America a year ago. One of our guys, Neil, he left corporate America a year and a half ago. I mean, this kid is a fantastic carpenter. He's developing to be a fantastic carpenter. I'm not saying he has 30 years experience, but what I am saying is put a guy with a year and a half experience in the right culture with the right systems, allowing guys to grow and training them. I will put that guy against this 10-year guy who's just been in the business and just kind of evolved. Like intentional growth trumps 30 years of bad experience. And then I think you also have the piece too where there's a different drive,
So the next what I kind of feel like with the growth in the culture and everything else, people can make a certain amount in corporate America. They're gonna max out within anyone's company. I think that with what we do, until you get to a certain scale where you can pay people these really big numbers, what does it look like for somebody coming in to kind of where they can max out within your company? Because even within 9 years of doing this, it's only been 3 years that you've really been expanding the market that you're in now and growing it. So these people who are with you now, where are they going to be 5 years from now, 10 years from now, if the ceiling, just because of the industry, is not that high above? They're not going to get an opportunity working to make 150, 200 grand a year being a carpenter, because if they are, I'll come work for you.
Right. But because they've got that paper with that 4-year degree, does that put them at this sky's the limit? Their employer owns their desk, right? So the day that their employer tells them to hit the road, they don't have a seat to fill anymore.
Yeah, but the market's way bigger in the corporate world. That the ladder you can climb is a lot greater than a carpenter in your shop.
Yeah, but I think that just goes to the point. Like, I don't know that everyone's made for corporate America.
Yeah, but what do you do about your people where they are now? Now that they're all working in there, what happens when they're 10 years in, 14 years in? What is the growth pattern at your company?
And I guess I question, like this guy who's working for you now, and this is intentionally challenging.
Yeah.
Just because I'm curious as well. Nick does the same thing with his company. Like, these people are coming in and there's going to be a max on what they can pay. So they're coming in and maybe they're making better than what somebody else is. And I know it's not always about money, but when they are 10 years in, what does that look like to be retaining these people within your company if they're going to max out from a pay? A lot of the newness is going to go away. Like, I'll be the first one to admit, me 23, me versus me 33, I would base a lot of my jobs on my lifestyle and the lifestyle that I have and being able to support my family and my children. And I wouldn't be able to just say, hey, you know what? I'm just going to go work for somebody and make $25 an hour, $30 an hour now, because I couldn't do that. I would have to make a jump. I'd have to make at least a lateral jump. And I'd be curious, 10 years from now, what that looks like. Do you have an ability to retain these people? And I think that that's probably big picture an issue with our company.
But I think that is 100% every reason why I'm waking up and building this business. Like, I'm not comfortable, I'm not comfortable where we're at right now. Like, the idea is growth. Like, we have a very clear vision, and it's very clear amongst the team of what we're trying to do as a business. Now, if that doesn't allow guys certain opportunities, like, again, all you can offer is what you can offer. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, at a certain point, so in 10 years from now, when that guy feels like he's worth $100,000, bring $100,000 of value and let's figure out a way to keep you. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't look at it this ceiling. I don't look at it that there's this threshold. I think there's a threshold amongst maybe our apprentice carpenters, our field carpenters, potentially even our lead carpenters through management. I think there's different thresholds. But again, if you feel like you're worth $150,000 and you want to be a lead carpenter, we can't support that. So again, right?
Well, yes and no. You're saying you can't support it, but you made a comment that then bring 150 or $100,000 of value to the table. So let's look at it.
Which is it?
But at that point, you don't want to be a lead carpenter.
I would argue that I know guys in in the trades that they get paid piecework. It's based on how much square footage they install, whatever.
Right.
And some of those guys are making 150 to $200,000 because they've perfected their process, that they're working so hard and so fast and so efficiently that they can pull in that money.
Again, I think we're talking a market thing, but
sure. But at the same time, if you're putting him out and he's basically getting double the amount of work that you're estimating him to do, why couldn't he get paid double the money if he's producing double the work?
Yeah, so that's my point.
Well, I think that's
but that doesn't work for the culture of the company because
then it becomes money driven.
Then it becomes money driven.
Right now, it's
So let's just bring it back to, let's say a lot of times people grow up and then they buy a house. And that's a huge sticking point where, hey, I need to get this kind of a bump. And when you have a lot of people involved in a company like that size, and if it all happens at the same time, there is the no. You have to say no. Like, I know you said
100%, yeah.
So why don't we talk about the no a little bit?
But that means I'm content with being where I'm at. Like,
not you, like them. I'm just saying about them. How do you make?
How do you say no?
Yeah. How do you, if it's not going to work, let's say they don't produce the $100,000 of work, this is the culture that you have in there. How do you go about either reconstructing it for them so that this is where they're going to be, like this is their plateau?
Mm-hmm.
How do you do that and keep the company culture and the drive, and not just them go, I'm going to settle and then start looking?
But don't you think that has to do with setting the expectation?
Agreed, but you're hiring younger guys, so the growth on some people is going to be skyrocketing, and then people are going to hit these transitions. Like you bought a house early, then you had 2 kids. That's a whole different ballgame. And like, how do you say to them that they've had your back this whole way through, and then you go, hey, you're not worth the $100,000 a year that you're now asking for?
I think that's. I mean, I hate to say it. I think that's part of the business, right? And that's part of where they need to decide how much responsibility do I want. But
I'm saying to you, what if they can't handle it? Everyone wants a lot of things.
No.
But how do you do it? How do you teach?
They're going to do it the same way I did, and they're going to work for the next 15 years, and work more hours than they'd ever imagine, learn more about themselves that they have. Like, do you know what I'm saying? At that point, you've outgrown, quote unquote, the company.
But how do you smell that coming?
You don't. And I just don't think that way. Like, if my mentality was every guy will leave and don't trust anyone, then I got to question what I'm doing as a business. I should stay in the field.
But that's not what I was asking. I was asking, how do you keep it where you can still be friends with these people and you're not an employee, and that you know what's going on? Like, you know that they're having kids. They don't need to tell you, hey, my wife's pregnant, to get it out there. You're having these interactions with people
where know the question is coming.
You know it's coming. It's already 70 feet down the road. How are you as an owner preparing yourself, your company, for that?
I feel like, first off, that's a communication thing, like me meeting with the guys regularly, kind of sensing something's going on in their personal life, talking with them, to me, that's the culture. Like that, to me, that's culture. Shooting a guy a text and saying, hey dude, is everything okay? Like something, what's going on?
Should be a text. Sorry. But, you're saying that's kind of, it shouldn't be a text.
Without
that's
without
a face
giving,
to face.
Without giving backstory. But my point is to me, you should never be so out of touch with your people.
I think you're taking a portion of what John is saying and going down a path. To bring it back a little bit, I think, John, you asked the question, how do you maintain the positive culture with your people when you know that they're going to come to you at some point, whether it's a life-changing event such as having kids, buying a house, whatever the case may be, and they're going to ask for something that they're probably not deserving
of.
So
it's exactly, it's our job to kind of ramp them up to see if they're going to be able to do that.
Right. To answer that for me, I don't know. And I think the only way I'm working towards that is when I have the meetings with the guys or sitting down is asking the question and being, in hopes, hey, what do you see? Like, what are you working towards? How, you're a lead carpenter now.
But have you ever gotten, like, when you've been asked that in your career, like, I don't really know. Like, it's you have some sort of understanding, even if it's 12. But it's really short-sighted.
Sure.
For the most part.
Right.
Like,
no one. Yeah. Right.
Like, I'm gonna give you an example.
What's the goal? Make 6 figures a year.
Exactly.
Right.
It's
awesome.
Yeah.
All right. Now
car.
I'm there. It's like, what's your goal now? It's like, I don't know.
I only got
it's like financial freedom.
Well, it's
like,
fun. Go ahead, Tyler.
I mean, I commend what you're doing. I commend what Nick is doing. I just also, I want to ensure, even, I feel like John usually takes this approach that however, we're all looking to better the industry. We can only do what we're doing in our little bubble or our little circle. I just want to make sure that whatever growth, you mentioned intentional growth, that the growth is intentional, that it's deliberate, that it's calculated, because we're creating this business for these people to basically support themselves and support their family. And I want to ensure that our industry isn't the type of industry that's going to blow up and everyone who works for us is going to make $75,000 to $100,000. But I want to make sure that whatever we are offering them, it's sustainable when there's a downturn.
And
because all of it's for nothing
Right.
if you can sustain what you're doing while the economy's hot and while you're being fed work. And this isn't related, this isn't directed at you, but I think that there's a ton of guys and girls out there, again, starting out on their own or building these companies because the economy's hot and the standards for certain people are lower, and they're not creating a growth that's sustainable when things slow down.
And
I think that that's super important. And I think that even like you had mentioned, culture is so important to you. I think that defining what your culture is within your company is so critical as well, because there's a lot of young kids who are going to take a job with you because they see what you're doing, they see it's cool, they see the new tools, they see the steady work. And if they're not actually there for the people, if things slow down and some of those perks go away and then somebody offers them more, they're gonna jump ship.
So, and I think you gotta establish, I really don't think it matters what you think your culture is. I think, it's what your people think your culture is, the way other people perceive, from our builders we're working for. Like, those are the guys you should be asking what our culture is. Like, forget what I think, right? I think
we're establishing that right now, is that we're, and even myself included, it's, we're trying to answer, Anthony, you're trying to answer what your culture is. And in a way we're kind of going in circles with it, but it is the perception of our culture. Mm-hmm. And whether or not you can live up to what you're, quote unquote, marketing your culture as.
It's just hard to think about, like, what do I do in 10 years when things slowed? Like, everything I'm doing today. And I think this is the way we should kind of think, almost view our businesses, is where, like, I want to do everything today, so I'm not slowing down in 10 years. I want to nail down our numbers now. Like, mm-hmm. I don't intend on getting slow. I was born and raised in this industry. I have no intentions. My mentality is growth, and I don't know what growth is, right? What I'm understanding is growth has nothing to do with how many people are on the payroll.
Right.
All that I can tell you is 8 years ago, I did not think this business could operate without me in the field, because I felt like I was the business.
Right.
And when I see our guys running jobs and taking ownership and doing the little things, and you see the work we're putting out, like, that's not because I'm dangling a carrot in front of anyone. Like, that's not because the guy's making $150,000 or because he thinks in 10 years from now he's going to make I think he believes in the vision that let's keep this thing going. Let's keep pushing. And why couldn't I had said something in one of our meetings a couple weeks back where I had said, what seems more unlikely, right? If I told you 5 years ago, I was talking to one of our leads, Mitch. He started with me out of high school at 15 years old.
Go Mitch.
Yeah.
Sorry. Shout out to Mitch.
I mean, I could go on and on, but so I said, if 5 years ago when you started with us, I said, look, in 5 years from now, you'd be running, a couple $100,000 trim project for us. You'd be, we'd have grown our team to 11 people. And I start naming, doing articles on fine home building, blah, 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 all these things, right? I said, did that seem more unrealistic, or me saying, hey, this time next year, if we can keep this going, we'll have health insurance? Like, what seems more unrealistic? Well, definitely that first 5 years, right? So my thing is keeping that vision and having the guys not listen to me talk about the vision, but like see the vision and see the growth and see what's going on around them. To me, that's where like the proof is in the pudding. So I get a little defensive on the young guys don't want to work and everybody's green, but like I genuinely believe if they're in an environment to grow, like we are building some phenomenal carpenters that anybody would be lucky to have. And then those guys, you know what I mean? And it's kind of this, to me, that's the culture. Now, when you got a guy like Mitch, who's been with us 5-6 years, who has done nothing but work on multi-million-dollar homes and kind of learning the right way to do things. Now he's investing in the next guy. I'm 34, right? So when I say young guys, I mean, it's all guys my age, maybe a few years older. Like, to me, we are the next generation. It's, I'm not looking for the cheapest, youngest, most naive guy who I can point and dictate around. And if, you know what I mean, ask our guys. I've had to take a huge step back to this kind of office role that kind of like we kicked this off. Like it's not, I love this side of the business. I do enjoy it, but man, put me in the field, put me on scaffold, working on a ceiling with music playing and the guys and eating lunch with them, sitting on top of our lunch boxes. Like that's why I started this business.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? I didn't.
I mean, I think we all start businesses for that similar reasons. Being a tradesperson, and then we grow into it and realize that there's other guys out there that deserve opportunities, and we take it upon ourselves to create those opportunities for them because we know how badly they want it because we remember how badly we wanted it.
Yep, 100%.
And Anthony, this was good. This was good. I like the progression of the discussion around culture. I think
I appreciate it, guys.
Yeah, there's a lot to take away from this. And I mean, again, like Tyler said, this is, more than just us. But, to wrap, it's like it is creating an environment that not only inspires everyone individually, but, as a team.
Yeah, and I think we all need to focus on whatever capacity we have doing that that's not just creating an environment that's sustainable today, because it's not always going to be this way. And I mean, even to speak to, you having a couple $100,000 trim package, there's going to be people who listen to this who build houses for less than a couple $100,000.
100%.
So we just need to keep in mind that we are the exception to a lot of the market. And when we are discussing big picture, we are afforded a lot of things that many other people in industry or markets and everything else are not necessarily afforded. So we do have to ensure that everyone understands what may be working for us may not work for the rest of the industry. And, we need to find a better way to be able to pay people more money. And I think that that's contingent upon our consumer so that we can pay our employees more. We can invest in them more because you're able to do that to a certain point now. There's a lot of trim companies who are not able to do that.
The only thing that I want to touch on that is just, I promise if someone stays committed for the next 10 years and, they're going to be just like me, working out of their garage, refinishing furniture, wondering what the hell did I get myself into? Why am I doing this? Like I'm literally working for free. It's a ton of hard work and it's really hard to be something different and not follow suit, to not go after the production builder because that's just kind of seems like natural progression. And and stand your ground and believe in the work you're doing and the way you're doing it and how you're pricing it, because you have a vision for the kind of business you want to become. I think 10 years later, then you can be in a position, and I'm certain I'm not at the peak of where we'll be as a business, but I want to believe that it's just been it's the consistent like dedication to the vision, that if every guy listening to this podcast can understand, like, you don't have to be like the guys you've worked under, but the amount of work I cannot begin to tell you you're going to have to put in to get to a level of success, whatever that may be. Like, there's no shortcut to that.
Yeah, if you want to build something that's sustainable, there's no path other than walking uphill.
It's work. It's just get down to it. It's just work.
Yeah.
If not, it won't last. You'll go under, or your employees will leave. To make something lasting, just like putting together a casing or trimming out a window, there's no shortcut to it.
Yeah.
And just for the record, working in your own garage, wondering why you do this and this is ridiculous, that feeling doesn't go away. Not when you have a garage or a 10,000 square foot shop.
Yeah,
There's
you know
still
what,
I would say once a week it's a question.
Today was one of those days for me.
Do you agree?
Yeah.
I mean, it's always tough.
You're right. I mean, I just think it would be unfair to say that you get to a point where it's like, all right, I'm good.
No.
But even more than that, like when I know I've accomplished a great job, I don't even give myself like a pat in the back. It's more like I always feel like I'm now vulnerable to something happening. That it's like, oh, that went smooth. Something's gotta fall apart. Like my brakes didn't go on my truck. I had this weird like. There's a correction in this world that's going to happen every single time I do anything.
But that's what I'm saying. I think if we can maintain one thing is the mentality that this is big picture, right? And it's not strike, when the iron's hot, and it's a good economy, get it while it's hot. Like to some extent, okay, I get it, but like, take the time you need to take to build a business that can be sustainable. Like, train people, invest in people, don't look at them as just warm bodies. Like,
yeah, but on the flip side of that is that we're all assuming that the employer is cool and they're not just all talking a good game. I've told a lot of people that the goal as an employee is to make sure you're getting out of the company as much as you're putting into it. Yeah. So if you stop learning, it's not about numbers. It's about, if the knowledge is stopped, then you really have to then start looking somewhere else, because your growth there is done. So it is not just listening to all the hype. It's also making sure that there's follow through. And if you're not getting something out of that company, you got to move on. And you can't. I've done it before where I've been promised 3 companies in my career, and I put everything into them, and I got nothing out of them. So that's why, to go back to your question, that's why I made Benny part owner of Vintage.
So it wasn't a promise. It was, let's do this now.
No, I just said, you want to do this? He said, yeah. I go, I'm going to make you part owner. He goes, I don't need to be part owner. I'm like, no, I know you're going to put the effort in. And honestly, our goal is to make every employee, probably by, I would say 2021,
employee-owned company.
Yeah. It's phantom ownership, but yeah.
That's what it's called?
Yeah. So that way you don't want to have a lot of people making decisions for your company.
Sure.
Because you are the one that sells the jobs and all that. So the goal is to be able to do that. They have shares, they get profit out of it. Mm-hmm. And it's, everyone has a piece of the pie.
We should dig into that in a future episode.
Agreed. Yeah, I have a financial guy that wants to jump on.
We should do that, because I'm interested in learning.
Yeah, that's what we do, a profit sharing as well, and I think that gives everybody a little stake in it.
It makes the decisions more part of everyone can be an employee, but being a shareholder means that decisions you make affect your bottom line.
Sure. Anthony, thank you so much, man. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, guys.
Great combo, man.
Yeah, thanks, guys. And I know you guys hear it, but really appreciate what you guys are doing for the industry. And I think jumping on here and collectively talking, I just think it's huge. And thanks for, I know it's not easy for you guys either. So thanks for your commitment. And I think you guys, you are helping this industry, and thanks for all you're doing.
Well, we appreciate it, and we appreciate your support as well.
You
Thanks,
rock, dude.
fellas.
Awesome, man. We'll talk to you soon.
See you, bud.
See you, buddy.
That was a way better conversation than the IBS one.
Probuilt 2.0.
That was amazing. That was a good. That was really interesting to get, especially Tyler's side of the culture.
I always like Tyler's side there.
I know. He always has he always has an interesting swing on things. But no, so Anthony, Probuilt Woodworking on Instagram. We didn't even let him give him a shout out, but
No, we got right into
everyone knows who he is. He based out of Michigan. But guys, really appreciate all the support, the shares, the likes, the comments. Oh, do we have any new reviews?
Yeah, I was just pulling them
I
up.
was doing a real bad job doing that outro, so stick with us. We're gonna get a review here. We'll pull one up. And Tyler had a split. He had to help the wife. You got him?
Yeah, I do.
All right, cool. All right, here we go.
We should start with Fink.
Is Fink in here?
Fink's in there.
Mr. J. Fink.
Boom.
Refreshingly real, as he titles it. Figured I'd give it 100
He must
episodes.
be a writer.
Maybe. He does one of those magazines, right? Fine Home Builder? I'd give him 100 episodes before weighing in with some feedback. You can't rush these things, but seriously, that 100 episode mark is important for this show because the three of you have stuck to your mission from episode 1 and never deviated. No big sellouts, no drifting off schedule, and leaving big gaps between episodes. He must have missed a few.
Yeah.
And no egos, just honest conversation with interesting people, finding out what makes different craftspeople tick and how they have been able to make a living following their dreams. The show works because it's so obviously from the heart, and that's why it can't be reproduced. Equal parts inspiration, encouragement, cautionary tale, and entertainment. Keep up the excellent work, guys. Mr. Fink, thank you so much. Means
Thank you,
a lot.
Justin. We
We
almost had him on early on in the podcast world. He was like our number 4 at JLC, and then he had the boot.
We should have him on.
We should have him on.
All right. We got another one. Honest Abe, 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. He missed 4.
It's unlucky.
So that's my favorite number. All right. Love the show and believe it's super important you guys continue to run with another 100 episodes. The insight and knowledge as well as trials and tribulations you share help me remember that everyone is struggling equally. Nick talking about the need for efficiency in building is so important, and I believe not talked about enough. Here's the difference between where you guys work at and the rest of the building that's happening. You are all high-level craftsmen who continue to train and work with others of the same mindset. However, most crews working out there are just working for a paycheck and not concerned about craftsmanship or pride. We've all heard the saying, you can't see it from my house, on a job site with a hack. Someone who cares about being a craftsman yet needs a check to grow and build their business can utilize these workers who don't care because all of the hard part and guesswork has been removed from the equation. Now that PM owner-operator will be free to focus on projects that actually require a craftsman on site. It's a trade-off we can utilize to make time for what we want to do and sometimes what we need to step back and take a 1,000-foot view to see what the industry needs as a whole so we can focus on what we want. I apologize. I feel like I'm tripping over some of these words.
Oh, you nailed it.
I'd love to have a crew of craftsmen work with every day, but those relationships take years to build and establish. As a solo act currently, I could benefit from technology helping me build houses and would want nothing but to help put profits back into becoming a better craftsman while providing for my family. Just saying. Keep up the great work, Elliot.
Best part about that one was pride.
Yeah,
Can't forget it.
for sure. So I was going to call him Abe, but his name's Elliot. Elliot, thank you so much.
That's just his handle.
It is, with the missing 4. Make sure you guys leave us a review on iTunes. We'll continue to read them at the end of the episodes.
You know what someone said on the podcast? They said 5-star review if you like it, 5-star warning if we need to change something.
I like that. Take care, guys.